This is the Living Room Podcast. It's a new podcast on my YouTube channel, and today I have a special guest named Glumlot, and I've been following his work for a couple of months since I got into the AI video space, and he stood out to me mainly because just of the atmospheric aesthetics that he has in his videos, and the continuity of his style and the lore that he builds around his imagery. There's like a lot of storytelling, and even though he doesn't need to say anything or have any narration in his videos, like you can tell there's a lot going on in this world, a lot of world building, a lot of creature building. I really like his videos. But yeah, Glumlot, you want to do a quick intro about who you are?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. Appreciate anyone who watches this weird stuff that I'm making. So always cool to meet new people who appreciate it. So appreciate that. Yeah. So my name's Dev. I go by the moniker Glumlot. I'm actually from Vancouver, British Columbia. So I'm a Canadian, but I've been living in the States. I'm here in Florida. Been here over half my life. So at this point, I'm pretty much American. So yeah, got started. Well, so before I even started dabbling in the AI tools, I was a director, had a video production company, and that ended the end of 2023. So it was around November, December. And when that ended, it kind of I had some free time on my hands, and I'd already been playing around with, Midjourney. I was using it for storyboards and for, director's treatments and things like that. As a director, obviously, once I figured out that I could start animating these things using Runway, it was just game over for me. I just became obsessed with it. So that's kind of how it started. And I really just started by posting still images mainly. I was really into liminal spaces. And so I'd kind of post, just still images, that stuff, kind of almost pushing into like vaporwave a little bit. And I was actually making music too. So Glumlot was actually just going to be my music project, and I started making the still images to accompany as like album artwork. So that's how it started. And then once I got into Runway, I started animating stuff, and quickly realized you can kind of build worlds and tell stories with it. So I've been obsessed ever since.
Awesome! I didn't know you were a director. How long have you been in this video space for before AI?
Yeah, so I started freelancing back in 2017 into 2018, right around there. Just, as a videographer, running and gunning, just doing little promos and like very low budget commercials and a lot of music videos. Definitely cut my teeth on music videos. So I've been doing it for a while. And then in 2020 is when I started the last company that I had with a partner of mine. And at that point, we scaled it up a little bit. I mean, it's when you're kind of a run and gun videographer, you hit a ceiling really quickly. Filmmaking and production is very much a team sport. So you start to realize like you have a look in your head. You have a look or aesthetic or a story that you're trying to tell. You're trying to achieve a certain level of excellence, and it's really hard to do that on your own. So when we partnered up and started the company, it was to try to get what's in our heads onto the screen, right? So at that point, I assumed more of a director role, and he assumed more of a cinematographer role. And the project started getting bigger and bigger, and we started bringing on more crew as we needed them. Still doing a lot of music videos and smaller commercials. And we kind of found ourselves in a weird space. We were doing a lot of branded content, but we started doing like a hybrid of like branded content meets documentary. So started doing a bunch of that stuff, and it was a lot of fun. We got to do some really cool stuff, travel a lot, all that good stuff. And honestly, like when that company ended, I was really depressed. Like I didn't really see it coming. It wasn't really my idea to end it, and that was like my long-term plan, was just to keep doing that. Like when I when I start doing something, I get really obsessed, and that's really all I can think about. So I put my all towards it. So when that ended, I was in kind of a dark space, you know. So, you know, using these like AI tools and being able to create from nothing was kind of therapeutic in a weird way. And I was able to start kind of making or like putting visuals to a lot of like even like screenplays I had written years prior that I knew I would never make. You know, you're writing something, you're writing with a producer hat on, knowing how much it would cost to do it. You kind of have to just divorce yourself from that and say, no, I'm just going to write, knowing that I'll never make this thing because it's, you know, tens of millions of dollars. Well, with AI, you can at least visualize it or create, you know, a concept of it or like a mock trailer of it. So that was a lot of the appeal for me. That's what made it a lot of fun, was being able to get these ideas that I already had kicking around.
Awesome.
And actually put visuals to them.
And so did you go to school for, you know, video or art?
Yeah. So in a roundabout way, I went and I went for audio production, really. So I went to a school called Full Sail in Winter Park, which is kind of like Orlando, Florida. Went there, got my associate's degree. Oh. It's like a accelerated program, so you get your associates in 1 year, you get your bachelor's in 2, kind of thing. And yeah, so my goal was really at that time, right? I would have been 20 when I went. At that time, I was, you know, I've always been a musician, so it's always kind of been music first for me. And you know, in my teen years, I learned how to record and to, you know, produce, just using like Fruity Loops back when it first, you know, the demo version of Fruity Loops where you had to create something and you couldn't save, so you had to kind of just like create something in one pass. That's where I got started, and again, got obsessed with it. And eventually, you know, my goal was really to own and operate a studio, you know, be an engineer and producer. So went to school for recording arts. It was great, you know, met a lot of really, really great people, learned a ton, and got out of that and never ended up working in a studio. And, you know, I've always had like my own little home studios and stuff, but really never did what I had planned on doing. It was a weird time in life. I moved back and forth, you know, back to Vancouver and then back to Florida, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And actually eventually got hired on to do live production. So like live AVL, audiovisual lighting production, at a big church, like at a big mega church. So I did that for like 9 years. I was running all their live production teams. You know, it was a big multi-site church. So they had like, at the time they had 4 or 5 campuses, and I think now they have like 10. So pretty huge church. But I learned a lot. I think that taught me a lot, and really it taught me a lot of what I needed to know when it came to directing, because you know, directing is very much like it's a leadership role. You know, sometimes it can feel like babysitting a little bit, but for the most part, it's more about, you know, kind of holding the vision and being able to articulate the vision and make it clear, while also kind of inspiring people around you to kind of do their best work to hopefully serve that vision. And I learned a lot of that stuff like in the church days, honestly, because, you know, live production it's very similar in that way, but it's very high stakes because everything is, you know, anything can go wrong, you know, in the blink of an eye, and you have to be able to stay cool and lead your team through it, most of which are volunteers, so they're not even paid to be there. So I definitely learned a lot through that experience, and I was able to take a lot of that into directing. You know, they're different, but they have a lot of similarities. But there was something about filmmaking, though, like, so not to get too long-winded, but as part of the story. So I'd been working at the church for like 9 years, and so I'm in Florida, right? So we have hurricanes all the time. We had a big hurricane come through. It was Hurricane Irma. I'm not sure if you ever heard about that one, back in 2017. Came through, and we kind of got lucky. The town that I live in, but like just north of us got hit really hard. And because I was working at the church at the time, anytime something like that happens, they suspend all their like regular operations and pretty much just go out and help the community, right? So we spent that whole week after Irma just going out and like helping people who, you know, say a tree fell on their house. We'd go and like cut the tree off and bring it to a burn pile, all that stuff. So we're doing that for like all week. And I was leading a team in Fort Myers, Florida, and we worked on this tree, this big tree. Someone else was doing the cutting, and me and some other guys would run in there, grab the pieces, bring them to a burn pile. And I don't remember any of this. This is all told to me after the fact because I don't remember any of it. But work on this big tree, and I guess this big limb kind of fell and like pivoted on itself and swung around like a slingshot. And me and the two other guys, again, I don't remember this, but me and the two other guys went running, and I was the unlucky dude to get hit. I got crushed by it. And I remember waking up just being in like severe pain. I couldn't catch a breath. I was completely winded. And they took me to, you know, the ER, pretty much ER. They were just like overrun with people. So they're like, you know, they did some x-rays and they're like, you have an acute fracture in your pelvis, but you're good to go. You know, so they sent me home on some crutches and some pain meds. And I went home and I spent the most excruciating, you know, that was a Thursday. So, you know, the rest of that night, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was at home just in excruciating pain. Anyways, it turns out, you know, the following Monday, I went back to the hospital to get to the doctor to get a second opinion. I had completely broken my pelvis in 3 places. I had like 3 broken ribs, partially collapsed lungs. So like the ER doctor, I don't think he knew what he was talking about sending me home. But anyway, so that put me out for like 4 months. I had to have surgery. I had to have, you know, an external fixator coming out of my, you know, holding me together, the one that comes out of your body. So I was like double non-weight bearing. I couldn't even put pressure on my feet for 3 of those months. So I was completely bedridden. And through that time, I you know, there's not a lot to do during a time like that, but like watch Netflix and just like either wallow in depression or really start thinking like, all right, life is short. I almost died. Like, what do I want to do with my life? And I definitely wallowed in some depression for a little while, but eventually when I got to the point of like, hey, I'm glad I'm alive. What do I want to do with my life? I started just thinking long and hard about it. And filmmaking was always something that was kind of on the back burner for me. Always wanted to get into it. So through that time of just being like bedridden and healing, I had made the decision that I was gonna buy a camera. I was gonna start shooting, and that's exactly what I did. As soon as I was back up on my feet, that's what I did. Bought a camera, and I would, you know, film everything, and that's what led to. And then I would post it online too. So I'd post it, you know, on whatever, Instagram, Facebook, and that's what led to my first paid gig, and it just kind of snowballed from there. It never really stopped. Eventually got to the point where I was able to replace like the salary that I was making doing production stuff for the church with filmmaking. So I started doing that. So it's kind of a weird roundabout way how I got into it. But
is that really, still how you really make your money is through filmmaking?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm still in like the freelancing side now, you know. So I pick up the camera from time to time, but I'm still a freelance director.
So you come from outside of social media, coming into it, and then creating this AI for social media.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like social media has never really been my thing. Like, to be honest with you, I actually started with Glumlot. I started on TikTok, and I never used TikTok. I had Instagram. I didn't even have a TikTok. Actually, my wife is really into TikTok. She was like an early adopter back when it was Musical.ly before TikTok. It was like when it was just the dance thing. Do you remember? Wow. Musical.ly, yes, yeah. So she was hip to it like way back then, and she would send me stuff, and you know, and I always liked the stuff she said. Like, it's hilarious, you know. But it wasn't until she was like, "Hey, you should probably," because I started posting on Instagram. She's like, "This stuff would probably be better on TikTok." I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot." So started posting on there, and yeah, she's right. I think TikTok is it's a good place to find like-minded people, you know, like and it's funny because it wasn't until like I remember it, the first video that I posted that you know did well and actually caught some traction. I remember the feeling before I posted it. I was like, no one's gonna like this. This is so weird. It's so like there's no way that there's going to be people that like this. I remember truly feeling that like that. And then, like I said, that's the one that kind of caught, and it was like a really interesting lesson for me that the more that you just follow create what you want to see. And it sounds cliche, and I understand that, but it's true. Like, you make the thing that you want to see, or you make the music that you want to hear. There's going to be people that appreciate that, and they're going to appreciate it on a deeper level because it's not, like it's not manufactured. It's really what you wanted to create, and it's really hard to fake. So I think that was really cool, and that was all TikTok. That happened there, and I found kind of a community there of people that like the weird stuff
That's
that I
awesome
like.
because
It was pretty cool.
after creating content for a while and creating this many videos, it's like it's easy to forget that because it's like, oh, people like this content, so let me keep on regurgitating different variations and forms of that content because it did well, and let's feed the algorithm, which is never full, always hungry. you know
Yeah, no, for sure. And if you were doing, that's the thing, right? Like, it's so hard. You don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but it's so hard not to chase that, like to chase numbers. It really is. It's hard. I think anyone who says it's not is lying because it's so enticing, because it's validation, right? Like, we're humans. We are, we're like, we thrive in community. We need that. And as humans, we need validation, right? And social media is it's a different version of validation, but it kind of reacts in your brain the same way as, like your tribe would validate you, right? Like, there's not much difference there. So it's really hard not to chase that. And I think I've done an okay job because the truth is, like, the stuff that does the best, like, you can double down and just do that, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you love it, it's something you do. But I've always just, like, I'm really scared of getting bored with what I do, so I've always tried to keep at least a few different styles or genres or whatever going because I like them all, and I don't. I'm really scared of getting, like, pigeonholed into just, like, the one thing, So yeah, it's a constant thing, and the more you grow, the harder that becomes. But I think it's just something you got to just be aware of, like, what do you, because it's the thing too, like, it's the long game, right? It's like it's very much a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, some people maybe just want to run a sprint and be done, sell their account or whatever, and that's fine. But for me, it's not that. Like, I like to build things. I like to be proud of what I'm doing. So for me, I'm really I'm cognizant about this being fun still in a year from now, or in 2 years from now, and it won't be fun still if I'm just doing the same thing over and over again.
that's a good way to see it. How many videos did you post before the first viral one, and what different ways of directing, editing, or ideation did you try before the first one blew up?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how many videos I had before that one. It might have been, it wasn't a ton, probably 20, maybe 15 to 20. But they were all very different from each other. I was very much. That's the thing about AI, right? Like, you can do anything. So that's like the fun part too. Is when you first start, it's like you're just exploring it. You're like, all right, what do I want to see? Like, and I like a lot of different things. So that's that kind of, you're just like testing it out. You're testing and exploring. And then in my case, I was posting as I was doing that, because from the very beginning, for some reason, I'm a perfectionist. I'm OCD. Like, I have all that stuff. When it comes to everything else I've done in life, like, I always hold on to things and I'm too scared to show them until they're perfect, which never really comes. Right. But for some reason, I don't know why, with Glumlot, I just never had that. I always had that, like, done is better than perfect mentality. And I'm so glad, because that really is the way to learn. Like, that's the way to learn. And then obviously, like we're talking about right now, like, find your audience, right? So yeah, it was probably 15 to 20 videos, all very different styles, before I found that one. The tools, honestly, man, the tools kind of stayed the same, like, till now. I'm like I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to technology. Like if I find something that works, I tend to just stick with it. So like for me, you know, like I said, I was already using
Yeah.
Midjourney just as a director. And then the first thing I think the first thing I tried was Runway, and it might have been Pika. I think I may have tried Pika
Yeah.
like once, and that was just it wasn't for me. But yeah, it was Runway like really quick, and it was always kind of the same workflow, right? It was you know, text to image prompts in Midjourney, and then taking those images one by one into Runway and doing image to video. I still do that till this day. I have played around with some other tools. I don't know. Like I said, like I get stuck in my ways, and for me, like thinking about learning another, like not that they're that hard, but even like signing up for another thing and like having that in my brain, it just makes me feel like less likely to want to make something. It's clutter, you know? It's like having a messy desk. Like it's not I want just as little, you know, bullshit from like idea to creation.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to make it. And so when you find something that works, at least for me, that's just my personality. I find something that works and I stick with it until there's an idea that I have that can't be done that way, and I feel strongly enough about it that I'm willing to go learn something else or sign up for another tool. You know, that's really the only time I'll
Hey, before I
I'll
ask a
budge.
question about that, I wanted to revisit your work before that first video. So you said 15 to 20 videos, right? How many videos were you posting a day, and how many days did it take you to post those 15 to 20?
So at that time, I was posting every day. It wasn't always videos though. I would mix it up. I would do probably at that
Really?
time
Like
more
single or
still
slideshows?
images than anything else. Yeah, just single. Yeah, I was just doing like liminal spaces. You know, I was creating liminal spaces in Midjourney, and I was just posting those with some music that kind of passed the vibe check, and that was really it. And then when I started doing videos, I remember that too. Like I remember that feeling of this is manageable. Even like posting every day, I'm like, because they're images, you know, like in Midjourney, you're creating thousands of them, and it's really easy just to post images. That's easy. But as soon as you start getting into video, it's like, oh, it takes more time. And I remember having that like conversation with myself, like, man, am I going to be able to post a video every day? And obviously, no. Like that, I never even tried. To me, it was like I did the images most days, and then like a video once or twice a week for a while. And then I think once that one did well, I started doing. It was probably like every other day or every 3 days I'd post a video. I just kind of went hard with it, and I know other people.
Wait, so
do way
the
more than
20th
that, but for
video,
me,
the one
that's hard.
that went viral, was the first video you did on TikTok?
Mm-hmm. No, I'd probably done, like I said, I might be off a little bit, but I had probably done like 15 to 20 videos, I think. And I was posting them on TikTok. Yeah, they were, I was doing like some mock trailers, and then some little, like, they were kind of similar to what I do now. But they weren't, like, aesthetically, they weren't the exact same, but they were kind of close. They were like little, you know, 45 to a minute things. And I was posting them. Yeah, I was posting those just on TikTok at the time. I wasn't posting
Gotcha.
them on Instagram.
Okay, so that's interesting, you know, because I always like to ask that, because, you know, I just find a pattern when I ask a lot of people, like, it's mainly they just tried a lot of things, like different things, not like the same things. And they learned something different each time they tried it, and good enough was better than best, which is kind of like, you're just kind of like verifying that.
For sure, yeah.
But I really like what you said about like, create what you would like to see. And I sometimes have to remind myself of that when I'm like looking at my numbers and I'm like, dude, what used to do well is not doing well. I need it to do well, because I'm full-time social media, and it really affects me. But thanks for that reminder. As far as workflow goes,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you saw the news about Runway announcing Gen 4. Yeah, that was wild.
Yes.
I was in bed. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, it's week to week, man. There's like something new coming out from this X or that company, and I've like you, I have the unlimited plan on Runway. I'm sure you do too, right? But that's amazing.
Yeah.
Image to video. When you make your videos, right? Like, what is your step-by-step process? Like, do you have the idea first? Like, oh, you see this movie. By the way, I'm going to ask you what, you could include your answer in your answer. Like, which movies, comics, anime, whatever, influenced the aesthetics as well as the lore of your, world building that you build. And do you start with like the idea, or do you hear a song? You're like, dude, this song is great. Because I hear you editing cuts to the song, and I'm like, dude, you probably download the song from TikTok, and then you go into your video editor. You probably kind of like take that, maybe change the frame rate of each clip, and then you maybe you like edit it to like the song you chose, or was the song an afterthought? I don't know, or like you've had ideas from screenplays that you said you've been influenced by liminal spaces in the past. And maybe all that is taken into account, but like, how does it go? Like, is it idea first or the sound first, or you're like, something happens to you today, and then you're like, you create an idea based on your experience in the real world. How does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So when I first started playing around with the AI stuff, especially with video, it was very much visuals first, because I was doing so much experimentation and just testing and trying to find looks and stuff. So it would very much start with that, and then I would just think like, okay, well, what soundscape would fit this, and then I'd go and I'd start looking around. Now it's flip flopped. It's the opposite. I'm very much inspired by music first, which I've always kind of been that way. I mean, uh, I've always kind of seen visuals when I listen to music. It's always been a thing for me. It goes back to like making music videos, or even like, playing in a band and figuring out music videos, or like album artwork, stuff like that. So that my mind works that way. So now I find it easier to find the song that I'd like to create around, and match the visuals to that, because a lot of the times like a story will play out in my head. Like I'll see a sequence of shots as I'm listening to a song, so for me, like I just have a bunch of playlists, I'm constantly listening to Spotify. I'm just making different playlists and kind of different subgenres. And I'm always just constantly saving stuff, earmarking it for later. And sometimes I'll hear a song and I'm like, I got to make something for it right now. And I'll just have all the ideas already. So for the most part now, it's music first, and then and then really just creating what I see in my head, visually. And that's usually how it is. But again, in the beginning, it wasn't that way. In the beginning, it was very much like, I got a bunch of these visuals, and sometimes I'll even like cut them together, and then I'll add music. And yeah, I'm always gonna adjust things to the grid and make sure that, it's landing on beat, just for maximum impact. I mean, that's, again, going back to like music videos, that's just the way I think. It's hard for me to not do that. So, but it's funny how it changed though, because I think maybe because I was experimenting a little bit less in like Midjourney and Runway. And I knew that I could get to the look a lot quicker. So I'm happy now just to listen to music, and if an idea comes, I know that I can go make it happen pretty quickly.
How do you? Okay,
on the visual side, if that makes sense.
How many platforms are you currently monetizing on, and like, how do you handle copyright issues when you use the music that other people make? And do you use Udio or Suno or other kinds of text to music AIs?
All right, I monetize on exactly 0 platforms. It's just not something I'm doing right now, nor have I ever. There's nothing wrong with monetization. It's just the way. So every single creative passion I've ever had in my life, I have figured out a way to monetize and make it a business. You know, I've just always done that. Like from playing in bands to, producing music to, obviously picking up a camera and then making it my career. Like it, and what I've learned for myself, and again, I'm only speaking for myself. It just inherently changes things. The minute that money is involved, you can't help but look at it differently. And it, for me, just becomes less about the fun of creation and more about what is going to, make the most money. I mean, that's just, your brain goes there. So I've just been really weary of like not doing that, because I really enjoy what I'm doing with Glumlot. Like I really am. It's my hobby. It's a passion. I love doing it. I'm obsessed with it, and I don't want that to change, at least not yet. Like I don't know where it's going to go. I don't really have plans for it, but I know that I really enjoy it, and I want to try to keep that intact.
What about Glumlot do you enjoy so much?
I don't know. I think there's something therapeutic about it, and I'm not, I haven't spoken to a therapist about it or anything, but there's stuff that I'm able to visualize there that has been in my mind for a long time. And, they're fears, they're, just things that I'm wrestling with. And they're also, dreams and nightmares. That stuff, it just comes out. And not even that I'm that consciously doing it when I'm sitting there thinking of what I want to see and what I want to make, but it always ends up coming out. So there's something therapeutic about it. There's something, and it's fun. I really enjoy that creative process because, here's the thing about like, so, okay, say you have a production company and now you're scaling up, you're doing a little bit bigger projects. Now you're doing commercials. Now you need a crew of 10, 15 people. It's like the more, what I found, it's like the more money's involved, you think like, oh, we can be more and more creative, but you almost get more like encumbered by the machine. It's like because it takes all these people and it takes all the schedules and it takes all these permits and it takes all these things have to be done for the fun part to be done. AI got rid of all that, and listen, like I see both sides, of the coin when it comes to AI. I do. And I get that. I love that there are films made with large crews of people, of professionals and artists who are just brilliant in their craft, and they all work together to make one singular vision. I love that, and I don't see that ending. I hope to God it never does end. But for me, especially coming out of that, like I wasn't making features or anything like that, but it was to the point where we had a crew and we had to pay people and all that stuff. And that's great. But I had all these ideas that I was like, I just want to like make it, and so going from that to just sitting at my computer thinking like, cool, what do I want to make? And then boom, being able to see it, there was something like really, I don't know what the word is, liberating. I don't know. There's something really cool about it. It was just like, wow, this is different. And maybe it was because I was kind of burnt out on the production stuff. So it was like the right time in my life for that to come through and to like blow my mind on that level. I don't know, but that's why to me, it's always been so fun. Just like a constant experimentation, constant, therapy session, I guess. I don't know. It's strange. It's hard to put into words, but
so it's like you don't have to wait or get permission from anyone to just, or go through any middlemen of any kind to manifest your imagination.
Exactly. Yeah, and so to circle back to your other question too about like copyrights, right? When you're running a company and you're doing, you're doing commercials or you're doing branded content or whatever for companies. You don't skirt around copyright laws. Like you play it by the books. You have to. You got to do that. So when it came to Glumlot, knowing that like I'm not making any money off of this, like I don't want to like blatantly steal people's stuff. Like that's not what I want to do. Although people would say that AI is that. Um, so I figured out pretty quickly, okay, what is allowed? Like what does social media allow? Right, the whole like 1 minute rule is something I learned really quickly. So I would pretty much just like, what's the saying? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission, kind of thing. Like that was kind of my that's kind of what I live by with it. But I'll say like to this day, like YouTube, I've never gotten any copyright strikes or anything like that affected my channel. Like I've never had any blemishes on any of my accounts. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, nothing. It's I'm all good. So I've been able to skirt that line a little bit. But something I do as well is I really, this is just again something I really enjoy doing, is I really like doing like little remixes and stuff, So a lot of the times I'll take a track that I know fits, the vibe, or I have a story in my mind with it, and I'll bring it into Ableton, and I will, build things around it. I'll change tempo, I'll change pitch, I will add effects to it, all that stuff. I just enjoy doing that. And I found that especially too, like, you're talking about cutting to the beat and everything. Well, a lot of times, maybe the pacing's not quite right. The footage you have, or, you're working in 4-second chunks and runway or whatever. So that was something I would do out of necessity as well, is I would be able to manipulate the tempos of these songs, and it changes the vibe, right? So, and that kind of became its own little step that I really enjoyed doing. So that's
wow. So you do you get in touch with these artists, or do you just remix it and just see how it goes?
Some of them I do, if they're small enough, if they're on like Instagram and they're like, DMable, I will. I try to always tag them, at least if I use them. Like, I think the internet has changed things, right? Like having this conversation, say even 5 years ago, I feel like would be really different. But these days, the music industry is tough. It's tough for artists to break through, and even an artist that does break through, it's really hard for them to make money. So I don't know, and I might be wrong on this. My viewpoint might be completely flawed on this, but the way I look at it is I love using music from artists I love and telling anyone who asks, and also putting it in, tagging them in it and making sure like I rename the audio in TikTok or whatever. You can't do it in TikTok anymore, in Instagram, whatever, like making sure I rename it the artist name. And even like, and this is stupid, this maybe sounds dumb, but even like, it's really popular these days for artists to have like all lowercase, their artist name is all lowercase or whatever, I even do that. Like I'll go in and make sure I'm spelling everything correctly, make sure I'm doing them justice. So it's like, hey, this is a good representation of their music because I'm using it, and no, I don't get permission all the time to use it. But again, that's why if you notice, especially the last like 6 to 8 months, like most of my stuff's a minute long or under. I'm trying to keep it within what is whatever,
like
allowed on
60
TikTok
to 90
Instagram
seconds.
stuff.
I've been noticing going through your videos.
Yeah, well, and so, and a lot of times too, like, well, I found YouTube to be the most harsh with that. I think that their algorithm picks up on that stuff the most. So I try only to ever use 1 minute of a song. And then if the video might be 3 minutes, but then I'll use 3 different songs, a minute each. Try not to break those rules, obviously just one for like the health of my channel, but I don't know. If that's a rule, it's there for a reason. That means the band doesn't want it used. Like the truth is, if you're able to put it on TikTok or Instagram, whatever, the band signed off on you being able to use it in those platforms. I make music, I release music. When I do that through CD Baby, I check that, yes, I don't mind if my music is used in these platforms, right? So whether they did it or their label did it for them, I don't know, but I just try to stick to those guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the music comes first. Maybe you hear the music. Maybe it reminds you of a screenplay you wrote, or of a scene or an image in your mind pops up, and then maybe you go into Midjourney and you create from what you hear. Am I getting close to kind of like, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're on.
I've noticed
That's it. Yep.
montages. You succeed a lot with even now. Like a lot of AI creators have moved away from montages and kind of went into like keyframing. Right. So have you played with keyframing at all? Yeah.
No, not really. No, like I said, like, and that's why I probably make for a really boring podcast. I'm sorry, but once I don't know, like once I find something, I kind of stick with it. And I mean, you'll notice that I have evolved. There's things that I'm doing that, I'm
Yeah.
introducing dialogue and things like that. And I'm, animating faces and stuff. Like there's things that I'm doing. For me, it's just because I can tell a better story now. So like I was like, all right, I'll learn it. There's enough reason for me to learn it. But yeah, so I look at it as different styles. I look at, the montage, the music driven kind of just like, 3-4 second shot montages where there's not a lot of story, there's not a narrative. It's just kind of, I call it a tone poem. To me, it's not a plot. There's no story there. It just makes you feel something, and to me that it's valid because that's always been my goal. My goal is, and I think anyone who creates something, they're hoping that it's going to resonate. It's going to make people feel something, right? You can't determine what they feel. You just hope to get a reaction. And I think when I knew that Glumlot was kind of onto something, it was when I started seeing polarized reactions, right? Like some people would really enjoy it, some people really hate it. Those are both emotions, and those are both valid. And it's not up to me to decide if people like it or not. But it made them feel something, and that's always been the goal, And with the AI stuff too, like again, I don't knock anybody. People love making certain styles, and they do it for their own reason. Whatever their reason is, cool. But my reason, like, I've never really wanted to showcase the tools. Like I've never really been, I don't know, like I've never wanted it to feel like AI heavy. It's just all about what look at what these cool tools can do. More about can I make humans feel emotions using these like really advanced tools? I think there's something really interesting in that.
Wait, so
So sorry, that was a tangent.
I mean,
can't remember what we were talking
guess
about.
what I was trying to praise you for was like, dude, a lot of creators they stop succeeding with montages, and that's why they move to keyframing. But you could still succeed with montage. Like that's different. That's very hard, because you see so many people doing montages. It's kind of like an oversaturated thing. But like if you've got the look, you've got like
For sure.
you've got like the music and the rhythm and like the atmosphere. It's like, when I see your stuff, I want to imagine that there's a movie out there I could watch about this. Like whenever I see your video, I'm like, where's the full movie? Like, where's the movie trailer? Because I'm seeing a lot of edits, which is a trend. It's a content type on TikTok and other platforms. It's called an edit, right? So it's like, maybe they'll edit like scenes from this game or movie or show, and they'll kind of do what you do with the montage. But it's like where's the full version? Like I want to see like a feature or something whenever I see your stuff.
Right.
It's great. Yeah.
For sure. Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and me too. Me too. I like anytime I see, there's a bunch of creators that I watch, and I'm right there in the comments with everybody else, like, hey, like make a feature, and yeah, and that's definitely something. I mean, here's the thing. I feel like anyone who uses these tools, and gets obsessed with them like me, like we all are secretly wanting to make films, Obviously, like I'm a director as well, so there's no secret there. Like I would love to make, a feature film. I mean, that's always the dream, right? And now it's doable. Like that's the thing. Like even a year ago, it's doable, but it'd be a pain in the ass to do it. Now, like with the tools where they're at right now, it's just a matter of doing like the time it takes to do it. I've been working. I've been writing stuff and I'm still very much in pre-production, but that's my goal. Last year I said that 2025 I would make a feature film. So I'm hoping I can stick to that, but um, I don't want to just make it to make it. That's the thing. Like, yeah, I can fill up space. I can fill up, 90 minutes worth of space. But I don't know. I think another thing I think about a lot is, you can lose someone's attention really quickly. It's really easy to say that when you're watching 1 minute videos and they have the vibe and everything's, it carries you for a minute. But you're talking about, say an hour and a half of that. Like you have to have character and story to ground you in it and to really to give a shit enough to watch the whole thing. Honestly, like I think that's there's a reason why there's a formula, as like bad a word that is. There is a formula when it comes to storytelling for a feature length. You at least have to have certain elements that will hold people's attention, that they actually care where it goes and what's happening. Now in my mind, there's creative ways of doing it. I think that's been proven. One of my biggest inspirations for the Fold series that I do is it's a movie called Fantastic Planet. Right? It's a French movie made in like the 70s, and it's very psychedelic, there's a narrative, but it's a very loose narrative. There are movies like that, and obviously one that I get compared to a lot is The Holy Mountain. Same kind of thing. That one's a little bit more avant-garde. It's very very metaphysical and abstract, and it's hard to kind of see really what's going on and really understand what's happening. It's a lot of visual art, but there's still something there. There's something there that holds a viewer's attention, and I think I respect the craft enough to not just say like I can do that. Like, no, it takes a lot of work to do that right. Like, there's a reason why people spend years and years in development and then producing a film. It takes a lot of great minds put together. So to expect that I can just sit down one mind and just say I'm going to do it, like, yeah, I could, but it also might suck. So I'm very aware of that, and I want to. It's the plan, but I take it seriously. Like, I feel like I don't want to just make I don't want to make crap. I want to make something that I'm proud of, that people would actually be well served spending an hour and a half of their time watching.
Like, it kind of circles back to like, you want to do it right, just like the other answers you've given. You want to make sure you do it right before you actually do it or go all in. I have a two-part question, right?
For sure.
So as I watch your videos, I'm wondering, okay, he's got text to image Midjourney. Are there image upscalers you use? Actually, it's a three-part question. Are there image and or video upscalers you use in your workflow? That's question number one. Number two, when you go from image to video, is there an optional prompt you put in Runway to kind of go along with the image to video, process? And number three, how do you choose the sequencing of your scenes? Do you choose it in the image choosing stage where you choose which images to use for this piece, or do you choose it in the 3 to 4 second output stage where it's like, okay, this is how it started and ended. Okay, I think we could put it here. I know it's a long-winded question, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's good. I'm tracking. All right. Question number one. No, I don't use any other upscaling. I've just started actually using like in Runway, you can do 4K upscale, like just right in Runway. So I just started doing that. And honestly, I only ever do that if I know I'm going to want to punch in on something and just, keep clarity and resolution. So no, I don't use any third party for that. Second question, that was about, were we talking about sequences?
The
shot sequences?
Prompts.
You were saying
like the optional prompt box. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. In Runway. Yeah. So sometimes, So you'll notice something like, especially in like the more montagey stuff, like the camera movements are really simple. You know, like I have a less is more kind of mentality for that. And maybe it's because when I started, like a lot of movements and stuff, the technology just wasn't there yet. It didn't look good. So I just kind of stuck to what I felt like was the right vibe, but didn't really give it away, you know? So honestly, like I use Gen 2 a lot, you know, like there's obviously there's like turbo and all that stuff. Now there's Gen 4, you know, but like I use it especially for like that montage stuff, like, and I just use the camera controls a lot. Um, you know, and just use them like very sparingly, you know. I find it just looks better. And like what I see a lot of people, where I see that maybe they're kind of missing it a little bit, it just in my opinion is like these big swooping parallaxes and like these big camera moves and these like that stuff can be cool, you know. But if it doesn't fit, I keep saying vibe. I'm just going to overuse that word. I think we all understand what vibe means, right? Uh, if it doesn't fit the vibe, it to me it shouldn't be used. To me, it's a distraction. And again, to me, it's showcasing the tool instead of showcasing um, like the work. Instead of just putting it together to make people feel something. Because like what a slow camera dolly forward will do is, I mean, it's really powerful. Like it doesn't take a lot. You know, it doesn't take a lot of camera motion to get the feel, and it doesn't take a lot. You know, even for like your subject, they don't have to be doing these big actions and stuff. Especially for the stuff I'm doing. You know, these like weird cult vignettes. It's like they're all standing around, they're worshiping, or they're doing whatever. But like, it doesn't need to be a lot of movement. I'm doing more movement now, so that answers. Hopefully, this will answer your question. Yeah, if there is a specific action that my character is doing, right? If they're whatever, if they're running or if they're pointing somewhere or if they're doing this or doing that, I will add text in there as part of the prompt. But I'll usually use camera movements as well. So I'll usually go in and I know I want a little push forward. And then I'll also say, you know, he puts his right arm up and points his index finger in the distance, whatever, you know, whatever the thing is. So I will, if there's a specific motion that I want them to do, I'm going to tell it with text. I don't really, I don't use text for the camera moves part, you know. I very rarely, I haven't found a lot of success in doing like slow dolly push forwards. Like it just doesn't, it's never slow enough for me. That's why I kind of always go back to Gen 2 because I can just do like 2 clicks forward on the zoom, which is really like a dolly forward. And that usually does it, you know. Whereas if I start telling it what to do, what the camera should be doing, I feel like it's always too heavy handed. It always does too much. So that's that part. And then back to um, shot sequencing. So shot sequencing is huge to me. Um, I think this is where I think it's really easy to kind of separate yourself, maybe, you know, from other creators, because it's really easy. Here's the thing, we all tend to have a favorite uh, framing, you know, or a favorite composition style. Like we just tend to, you know, some people really like close ups and some people really like wide shots. Some people are all about their medium shots, you know, and if left to our own devices, we tend to just make a lot of the same stuff. And the problem with that is when you're watching even a minute video of that, it it becomes really stale really quickly. There's a few things it does. It becomes very stale really quickly. You're never giving the eye a break, right? So if you start on a wide shot and then move into like say a close up, you have variety, right? So you're telling a story too. A wide shot is great for explaining where are we, what is our set and setting, where are we, right? That's what your wide shots are for. Um, and then when you come into a close up, it's what is the emotion on the character's face? What are they doing? Or if it's a medium shot, you know, they're keeping these things in mind is really important because it breaks up your shot sequence so that it's interesting, but it also helps tell a story because now you're telling the who, what, when, where, and why, right? You're trying to show people what's going on with the setting, the people. So I feel like that's one place where I see sometimes it'll be a lot of close-ups all in a row, or it'll be a lot of just like big epic wide shots. And it's kind of like if you don't have a close-up to compare a wide shot to, then a wide shot becomes kind of meaningless, just like a close-up becomes meaningless. It's all about the contrast between a wide shot and a close-up. So for me, a good rule of thumb when you're thinking through this, right, is having a good mix of wide shots, medium shots, close-ups. Okay, like to me, that's so I'm always thinking that way, and I always have a beginning, middle, and end. That's what I know. I know that here's like again, they're not plotty. There's not this like grand narrative, but say they're going to do something, right? I know that they're going to go to the floating mall in the sky, right? I know that they're going to do that. Well, what do I need to get them there? What happens when they're there, and how is it going to end? So I already know all of that. Now I just start breaking it down. Okay, where are my wide shots? Which is pretty simple because it's like, okay, usually the first shot of a new location, your establishing shot, is a wide shot. It shows where you are. Then you come in, maybe you're on a medium shot, kind of showing like 3 or 4 people, in a room. Then you jump to your close up to come zero in on one of them to see what is their emotion right now. So it becomes really easy if you think that way. Um, Again, like I know the word formula is a kind of a bad word sometimes, but there's a reason. There's a reason why. It's because um, humans absorb story a certain way, especially in this world where there's not a lot of dialogue. There's not a lot of, sometimes there's voiceover, whatever, but if you're just telling a story visually, this stuff becomes even more important. Okay, you got to have a good mix of composition. Your framing needs to change. So yeah, I have that in mind, and I've gotten to the point where it becomes really easy that way. Because I thought that way too, or I think that way as a director, right? Like when you're going out for a shoot, you have a shot list. You know that way you have all your shots for the day that you have to get to tell the story. It's the same thing, or you can think in terms of a storyboard, right? It's the same thing. Um, that's why it's good to have something like that, so you're not going to miss out on any of those things once you do get into the edit. And you also said too, you said something as well. You said, does that happen in the edit as well? Yeah, sometimes it does, right? Like sometimes you break the rules in the edit because something works really well. You might have had an idea, but until it's on your timeline and you're cutting it up with the music and things are flowing, you might be able to break those rules because it works and because it has more emotional impact. You can do that. So you are constantly changing things, and it's not like I always have everything 100% figured out before I even get into the edit and nothing changes after that. Like, no, things always change, but going into it with that mindset, I feel like is really helpful because then you're at least going to get what you need. And if you want to break the rules and you want to change things, you can do that in the edit, but at least
I
you
know
have what
we
you
are
need.
at the 1 hour mark. I just wanted to respect your time to see if we had any room for any more questions or whether or not. So I had
Yeah,
to.
you're good, man. Yeah. Hey, I'm a night owl. All I'd be doing right now is just like watching YouTube or
I had
something.
I had
So
a
you're good.
two-part question, which is like, okay, I noticed you have different visual transition styles. You don't just have one transition style between two clips. I'm wondering if it is a transition between two scenes, or how do you determine when to use a specific fade in, fade out, or a flash, or just the common like cut to this scene. I guess that's one question, and the other question
Yeah.
is, what are the key principles to nailing your visual aesthetics in Midjourney without giving away your secret sauce?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So when it comes to transitions, so here's another thing too. This kind of goes into the last thing we were just talking about as well. But now we're talking movement, right? So when you are prompting or you're doing your camera movements in whatever platform you're in, um, that's something I'm also thinking of a lot. I like to build in at least a couple of sequences in a video where I have one continuous motion, right? So a lot of the time the default is that motion is forwards, right? You're always going forwards. So you're always doing dolly pushes forwards, and it cuts to the next shot that's also pushing forwards. That's fine, you know, and you can usually get away with that for the most part. But I like to mix it up. I like to do, you know, a lot of the times you'll see I'll do, you know, camera truck left to right, and then in that next shot right after is also trucking left to right, and that next shot after is also tracking left to right. You have to. It's hard to explain this, but you have to. I think of it as like almost like a water hose. Like you're directing energy, right? So where's your energy going? Your energy is going forwards, forwards, forwards. If it all of a sudden starts going backwards, that's an abrupt transition. You can do it, and you can do it all right, but I always like to try to like path of least resistance. So if I'm say I have three shots in a row that are moving forwards, I might have something where the person in the shot, I'm moving forwards, maybe that person moves to the right. Okay. Now that has motivated my next movements for my camera. Because that person moved to the right, it gave energy to the right. Does that make sense? So if I right now, right, say I'm whatever, I'm cult dude wearing a robe, and all of a sudden I dart this way, our eye now just did that. So that's a really good cut point to cut to a shot where the camera's now moving that way, or the action is also moving that way. So you got to realize like the things in your frame, they are creating energy and they're creating emotion, not emotion. They're creating a motion in certain directions, right? Um, it sounds kind of like nitpicky and kind of dumb, but this is kind of to me like the stuff that really adds up, and it really helps things flow and feel like a really tight edit is when you're watching for that kind of stuff. So like trucking left, right, like just keeping the motion, the energy in the right direction. I almost look at it as like a three-dimensional puzzle, right? Like, okay, are we going down this corridor? Okay, now we're going to take a right and we're going to go down here for a little while. Then we're going to go forwards again. Then, you know, we might take a left and go backwards a bit. Like I think of camera movements in 3 dimensions like that. So I think if you start thinking that way, like anyone who's watching this, who's like start thinking that way, and you'll start to see like your edits will flow so much better. But back to what we were just talking about, it has to make sense in the story, right? It has to make sense in the sequence of the story. So that stuff does have to be thought of ahead of time, because you have to know that before you start telling Runway which direction you want to move in, because you have a sequence of shots that makes a story. So you have to know that in order to be able to create that motion. So that's big. So back to like cuts. So a lot of it's a feel thing. A lot of it's just like, so let's say like a flash cut, right? A lot of that you'll see is like based on the impact of the song. If there's like a change in the music, there's usually at that point, I usually use those for a pretty abrupt change in scenery. If it's going from one location to another, I think it's a really good way of doing it. But I like it just for the impact. You know, I like those flash cuts. It just creates like this like quick rise, this jolt of energy. I'll do that. When it comes to, I don't do a ton of dissolves, but when I use the dissolve, it's usually in something that feels a little more psychedelic. You know, if it has that feeling already, it kind of harkens back to like cheesy 80s movies. You know, like there's a lot of dissolves, especially in like music videos and stuff back then. Like dissolves were really popular, and you don't see them anymore. So to me, it kind of plays to an era, but it also works really well with like psychedelic imagery. So you know, you got to use those tastefully. I would say don't try not to use them too much, but and those are really the main kind of cuts. Everything else, I just tend to just do a a jump cut or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach.
Yeah, I have to replay this part to listen and watch.
I probably confused everyone, and
no, because it was
sense, so I apologize. It makes sense in my mind. That's and it's hard to verbalize some of this stuff too, right? I'm sure you edit and everything, like you've been there, like to try to explain something that because we all have a weird way of thinking of everything, you know. So when you have to. This is literally the first time I've ever tried talking about this, so
Yeah, because it's very.
best I can do.
I mean, I had a question from that. It's like, well, at what point in your process do you have to actually go back to Midjourney and revisit, like, let's say you have like 3 or 4 clips stacked together in your video editor, ready to go, and then you look at what you've got next, your 10 other clips, for example, and you're like, maybe it'll, maybe I have to go back to Midjourney and regenerate an image to fit into this. Like, I don't know what point in time that needs to happen, but like, I guess I was wondering about that. But like, I know we had a question about like, what's the key to nailing, the limit, like the aesthetics that you have in Midjourney without giving away anything.
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll definitely get there for sure. Yeah. So yeah. So back to Midjourney, constantly. So here's the thing. Like, I look at it this way. You think about like a feature film production, right? They'll get into the edit and realize they missed some stuff, and they'll go do reshoots. They'll pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to go do reshoots because they miss some things when they're finally looking at the edit. Beautiful thing is we got Midjourney. It's sitting right next to, your whatever you're editing in. Like, it's right there. You can do it right now. So to me, there's no problem with going back in. In fact, I think that's a sign that you're thinking about the right things. For me, that's how I feel. I was actually just thinking about this today. I was working on a video, and I was in a later stage in the edit, and I'm like, I really need this shot. Went back to Midjourney, did it, and I do it all the time. But I realized, like, it's so awesome that you can do that. You can go back at any point and get what you didn't get the first time, and that's totally fine. And to me, it's a good sign. It's like you're thinking through a story. You're thinking through, what do I need? Especially if you start doing stuff like again, like these camera movements that are kind of carrying through from shot to shot. Like, you're going to have to do that more and more. But the good thing is too, you can just bring it back into runway and just put a different camera motion on it, So I think it's always good to go revisit that stuff and add things that you didn't think of the first time. I think it's great. So the aesthetic, to me, a lot of it. So it took me like probably the better part of like 5 months to finally get down. I'd gotten like 2 aesthetics that I really liked. And then eventually I figured out a third one too, that worked for me. So there's not a lot of magic in it. It was literally thousands of generations and just changing things slightly, changing things big time. But when it comes to like a prompt that got me pretty close to that, there's certain, I won't like give away the whole prompt or anything just because I don't think there's any need to. And here's the thing too, right? Like, AI has made things so incredibly easy for us. The last thing I want to do is take away the one place where someone can put their creative fingerprints on it. That's literally, it's the prompting. It's like, because the prompt, like where the magic happens is in those like creative reference stuff, right? That's where your taste is going to come out. And that's what's going to change. Like, it's going to differentiate your style from everyone else's. So that, I don't gatekeep. If if you've paid attention to, if you've seen me in the comments or my live streams or anything, that I don't gatekeep because I think it's silly to. I think that these tools, anyone could use them, but I kind of think that there's benefit in sitting there and trying to figure it out for 2, 3, 4 months until you get it, because it's going to be your style. If it's just given to you, which you can do, you can go on Google and there are websites that just have, thousands of style references that you can take and apply to any of your prompts, and you'll get an instant look, right? I don't think that's good. Like, I think for certain things, if you're in a pinch and you want to get a look, cool. But I think that the most crucial part, if you're trying to develop as like a creator in this space, is in that figuring it out. Like, figure out what works for you. Sit there and prompt just text to image for as long as it takes for you to get a look that you want, and then make a style reference based on that, right? And that's what I did. So, and again, it's probably not going to look exactly the same if you do it, but a lot of the things that got me that kind of like, late 70s, early 80s style, a lot of it was in the cameras, right? So like 35 millimeter Panavision camera, anamorphic lenses, heavy chromatic aberrations, slightly out of focus. You can even get into production design and how you want that to look. Do you want it to look surreal? Art house movie is a big one that people use, right? Like a low budget art house film. That stuff is all going to nudge you closer to that look. It's not going to get you exactly there, but it's going to get you a lot closer. And then as everyone knows, like, especially in Midjourney, like you can put all of your, any director or film or painter that has inspired you, that you want to somehow take a little bit of what that is and get it into your prompt. You can do that. You can put their names in, you can put the films in, you can do all that. And I tell people all the time, especially when I first started, I was so scared that I was going to confuse the AI. Like I couldn't put too much in. I don't want the prompt to be too long. It's not true at all. You're not going to confuse it. It knows nothing. You have to tell it everything it knows. So I would say load it all in there. Put all of your references in there, all the stuff that you like, that inspires you, that you feel kind of is going to get you closer to that look, and then see what you get. You're probably going to have to go in there and remove some. You're probably going to have to add some. But I don't know, that process to me was like, it was crucial, like just like the figuring it out part was crucial to me. So
basically, creating a text to image, like, period of time where you're experimenting with like the aesthetics and the look, and then turning that into a style reference, on top of like, perhaps using films or eras of media that inspired you, like that look, and then having those words, feed those into the text to image generator, as well as like directors or artists as well. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, like in the style of, and then all that stuff. That's how that's how I developed the Lost, the Fold, and Lucid, those 3 series that I do. That's the way I did that. I was able to I remember being so frustrated and watching other people's stuff and just being like, how the hell did they do it? Like that struggle, right? Like that feeling of like you're equal parts inspired and frustrated, because you're like, why is Midjourney not look the same for me? Like, do I have a different program? Yeah. Like that's how it feels, right? Eventually you'll get there. Like eventually you're going to get to that place. And then, like months later, I don't know if they had already was a thing or they came out with it, but they came out with the whole style reference thing. And I was like, then it made everything easy, because now I have images I like. I make a style reference out of that and keep complete consistency. And also, man, like I'm not a purist. There's like a newer series that I've been doing that I use images from other films as a style reference. I like the aesthetic of these certain, there's like 3 or 4 films, like these, like, again, like late 70s, early 80s films that I really like the look of them. And there's one painting in there too. And I put those in and I created a style reference from that. So yes, I have done it the hard way, but I'm also, now that I know like style references are a thing and how easy it is that I could just go pull a couple images off the internet to give me that aesthetic. I do it sometimes. Like, I'm not a purist in it. Because I know how hard it is to get that style, like, without doing that. I could sit there and spin my wheels for another 2 months, or I can just do that way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that there's something to finding your own, like to kind of finding it the hard way, because you're going to learn a lot about everything else too. You're going to learn about a lot about prompting and what works. So I think there's just something important to that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a dream when I'm watching your content. Do you have a diary? Do you ever write down your dreams?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'm like kind of obsessed with lucid dreaming. It's been something like I've always, as far back as I can remember, I've been able to naturally lucid dream. Not every night, it might be once a month some years. And then sometimes it's once every couple weeks. So I've been doing it my whole life and I've been aware of it. So like 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, this is like, I had a really profound lucid dream, and I was like, there's something to this. So I started doing some research, and by research, I mean I went on a Reddit, subreddit, lucid dreaming, and figured out like what are some ways to just like make sure you lucid dream. Like, what are some ways to like foolproof ways to enter into a lucid dream, become lucid. How do you stay in it once you're in it? Because that's another hard thing too. Is like you get excited and and all of a sudden you wake up, right? So there's these things that you can do. One of those things, like the very first rudimentary thing, is keeping a dream journal. So yes, especially in the beginning, keeping a dream journal is really important because it's like you're training a muscle. Like you have to teach your brain to remember your dreams. Now it's easier when you lucid dream, you tend to remember those a little bit easier, but even then you'll still forget. So it's always good. I just in my notes app, I'll just make notes of like the main points of the dream, because there's a way, it's important for this reason. There's one method that I find is the most tried and true, at least for myself. It's called the wake and back to bed method. So the way you do that is you set an alarm for 4 hours after you go to sleep, right? So if you're going to sleep at midnight, you set an alarm for 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., wake up, your alarm goes off, you wake up. Don't like jump out of bed and get all hyped. Don't do that. Stay kind of chill. You're awake, but you're chill, right? Get a glass of water or whatever. Get back into bed and start reading your dream journal. So you're getting back into that place. You're starting to your brain's starting to think in terms of your own dreams that you've had. So you're seeing your own kind of dreamscapes that you've already had, right? And then you start going back to sleep, right? You just relax. As you fall asleep, the goal is that you can, and it's pretty crazy because I've gotten to the point where I can do this. I'm falling asleep. I'm imagining a previous dream that I've had, and I can get to the point where like I can actually start seeing it. I'm still awake, right? I'm just like completely, my body's asleep, but my mind's awake, and I can walk right into that dream and be lucid the entire time. So I went from awake, fully awake, to walking into a dream, and it's all because of the wake and back to bed method. There's science behind it, because that 4 hour mark after you go to sleep, it's usually when your rapid eye movement sleep is like the highest. Like you're going to be in that heavy REM sleep. So what you're doing, it's not good for your sleep, but what you're doing is you're disturbing that. So you're jumping out of your REM sleep, you're awake, and then you're kind of walking right back into your REM sleep. So it's pretty cool. It's really cool. And here's something too, like I never hear any creators talk about this, like any like musicians or anything. Like I've heard music and written music in a dream before. Music's the hardest one to translate to like waking life because it usually sounds way different. But when it comes to visuals, I do that all the time. Like you can create these insane, like mountainscapes or, architecture. And then you could walk around in it and interact with it and remember it, and hopefully, be able to translate that to some visuals next time you sit down to create. So to me, it's a really powerful tool. Like lucid dreaming is really powerful tool. And I think more people should check it out. Again, it's kind of hurts your sleep a little bit. I do it once a week.
Wow. I didn't know it was a habit.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Have you tried like astral projection or substances to like?
No. So I have a friend who got really into astral projection. I'm scared of it. I don't know. I think like I've had enough out of body experiences, because that's kind of a side effect of doing the method that I just walked you through. A lot of the times you can have an out of body experience where you literally float out of your body, and those are usually accompanied by like terror. Honestly, they're usually really scary for me. Astral projection to me just creeps me out. Like I'm not saying I don't believe that people can do it. I don't have any want to try. Like to me, I don't know. I think like lucid dreaming itself is special enough and pretty amazing that I don't know. There's nothing like pushing me to try. Like my buddy, he got into it and he said that it works. He didn't tell me like if he could like go and predict stuff or like see things that were happening, and then he found out his right. I didn't hear any of that stuff. He just said, "Yeah, you definitely can do it." I don't know. I haven't tried myself. What about you? Have you
heard
tried
a lot of people use ayahuasca. I'm curious about it though.
Yeah. There's stuff yeah, not to get too much into it, but there's stuff called galantamine that I take sometimes. It's almost like a nootropic. Like you can buy it on Amazon. That stuff is like, if you do that method that I just told you and you add that to the mix, you are gonna lucid dream. I have yet to have
Do you sleepwalk?
it's yet to not work for me. Um, no, I think I've only ever once maybe, when I was a kid, my parents told me. I
No.
don't sleepwalk.
Yeah,
Do
as a
you?
kid, maybe. Uh,
Yeah.
hey, I
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I wonder why that is. I feel like kids sleepwalk a lot more than adults do, or maybe that's just our
I
experience.
forgot to ask a question. Do you use any color grades outside your prompts in your video editor? And which video editors do you recommend? Or do you do color grading, let's say,
Yeah.
on your iPhone or your Android in an app, like a filter app or something?
Yeah, no, I do it all. I edit in Premiere. It's just what I'm used to. It's just what I've always edited in. Um, and I like, again, it's something I'm just comfortable in Premiere. I do like a color pass on everything. I usually try, I try to get as much as I can in the prompt. Like the image itself needs to look like 95% there so that my color pass is really just going through adjusting saturation, making everything the same look, at least cohesive in that way. I do apply LUTs. I have a few LUTs that I use, like that are just kind of random LUTs that I've had for years that work for these different series. But again, those LUTs are only doing a little bit of color shift. They're doing a little bit of saturation, and that's kind of it. That's really all those are doing.
Mhm.
And then I'll add film grain as well. I add film grain and a little bit of film damage. I do that all in Premiere.
Okay,
So I
so
don't use any apps or anything.
I follow a lot of liminal creators'
Yep.
works, and yours stands out because, like, okay, you've got like this sci-fi fantasy kind of motif from the '80s, that I saw like when I was growing up, like
Mhm.
Never-Ending Story or kind of like similar, sky kind of things. You have like, those malls
sure.
we used to go to. Like, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm in my early 40s. I'm not, sure if you're around that age or not. 41.
Dang, dude, you look
41.
good. You're in your early 40s.
Thank you.
Yeah, you look
Oh,
good,
okay.
man. Yeah, I'm 37.
No, you look great,
Yeah,
man.
I don't
I like the
look so
beard. I just can't grow that out.
Yeah, not even today. Yeah. It's getting more and more gray every time I shave it.
But yeah, like those malls, like those very familiar, nostalgic childhood places. But like you like mix those two together, and it's like most people don't do that. They either have like pools or back rooms or
Yeah.
like
Well, that's the whole thing about like liminal spaces are generally empty, right? That's the whole thing about a liminal space. There's not people in them. They're these transitional spaces that feel off-putting to some and really comforting to others, right? Or a combination of the two. I find them comforting. That's the boat that I'm in. But I don't know. I always liked mixing. I like a location. It can be filled with people, but still feel liminal in a way, like, and a lot of it comes down to the architecture and just that era. I mean, that's when we grew up, right? Like, I don't know. I think as soon as you see that style of mall with, the tile and the fountains and stuff like that just, it makes you feel a certain way, or it makes our generation feel a certain way. And, if you look at the analytics, which I don't do very often, but when I do, it's like, yeah, the people that like it are people my age, or, plus or minus 5 years or 4 years. Like, so yeah, it's very much like a nostalgia thing. And it's something that we've all experienced and have a sense memory with, like it lives in our subconscious. It's there. And I think the mall thing is interesting too, because I mean, as you know, like malls are going away. Like they're not really, like, I know a big mall here just closed, and there's less and less of them, right? There's a lot of dead malls all around America and around the world. So it's kind of sad, you're seeing like part of your childhood go away. So I think that's why a lot of these like the liminal spaces and, you know, Kane pixels and the backroom stuff. Like, I think that's why a lot of it has resonated so much, because it's part of our, I don't know, it's part of our psyche in a way, and it's going away now. So it's kind of sad, and you're like maybe mourning the loss of it somehow, you know? So we watch this like nostalgia core stuff and this like dreamcore stuff. It somehow comforts you, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Like, because
I find it does.
I was born and raised in the U.S. and I've been in Asia for like almost 20 years. But yeah, when I was growing up, you know, we'd see the houses and the architecture, and I kind of look at your stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's very familiar and nostalgic, and, you know, old.
Yeah, that's cool.
In a way.
Yeah.
Houses built in the 50s and the 60s are still there.
Right.
Yeah.
They're still there. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's sad too. Like, you know, like the city that I live in, if the closer you get to like the downtown core, the houses, there's no old houses there anymore. They're all, they knock them all down and they build, you know, these big modern homes, right? Like, something sad about that. Like that old like 80s like quasi brutalist architecture. Like, I don't know. Like, that's why, I don't know. That's why I like going to like Epcot. You know?
Epcot Center in Florida.
I've never been there at Disney World. But
yeah, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was fun, man.
We got a 3-year-old.
Oh, that's great.
So we go once in a while, but yeah, I love it because it's like a snapshot of time, right? Like, that's what they thought the future would look like, but really, it just now it looks old, right? But it's still there.
I want to end the conversation just, you know, quickly just touching on like liminal spaces. Like that started trending on TikTok, I think 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more, or perhaps it's been there the whole time, just in the dark corner of TikTok, and then it's just suddenly mainstream. Mm-hmm. Like, what is it, man? What is it? Like, what is liminal spaces?
Yeah, well, you know, I think the first I ever heard like of the term liminal spaces was, I think it was the Backrooms, the whole
tint, right?
The, you know, the yellow soggy floor, all the lore started around that. It was like a 4chan thing or a Reddit thing, which obviously then Kane Pixels took and did his whole YouTube series and everything. So that was around the first time I heard of it, but it was always kind of painted in that like kind of creepy light, like it was kind of like a place you didn't want to be. And then I feel like as the lore around it grew, like then accounts started making like, you know, pool rooms, and they started adding all the levels of the back rooms, and it really opened up the world to where it's like, oh, this isn't all scary. It's some of it's safe, you know. But yeah, like I don't know, like I know a liminal space, it's like a threshold. It's like a place where you're not necessarily supposed to spend a lot of time, you know, airports, hallways. These are liminal spaces. They're spaces that you're not meant to stay, you know. And then you mix that with the nostalgia thing and growing older, it's like, yeah, we didn't stay. We grew older and we never went back, right? So there's a lot, I think, of emotion.
You're not meant to stay. Yeah, that's deep, man.
And I think that it's always, like, I think that it's always been a thing. I think now we just have a name for it.
It's like, yeah, know? You're like, you're not meant to stay in your childhood, and also you're not meant to stay in this limbo.
Right. Yeah. There's something to it. I mean, there's.
Oh yeah, like I've been buying like liminal spaces video games on Steam. I'm like, oh, pools. Let's get pools. Let's get the back rooms. Let's get. Have you seen the classrooms? Dude.
No, but I watched a whole playthrough on YouTube.
Okay.
It looks amazing. Like, I don't even play games, and I was like, but I love, you know, and I saw like pools. What is this? And I watched a guy play through the entire game. It's a pretty long game, you know, and I was just like blown away.
You just walk through with your keyboard and mouse, and it feels like your legs are like just wading through this knee-high water, and you know, one room after another, and it's just endless. Just that's empty pools, fully operational.
That's amazing. It's like, have you? Yeah, that's so cool. Have you watched any like the Kane Pixel stuff, like all this backroom stuff? That's a good rabbit hole to go down, man. He's made a bunch of them, and they're so well done.
Kane Pixels,
using, you know, what's he using? Kane Pixels, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
He's using
yeah,
Blender
yeah.
or whatever, but he does like found footage stories with them where like you no clip into the back rooms and it's like kind of a found footage camcorder thing, and they're really good. I mean, A20, he's making a movie with
Oh,
A24. They're doing a feature film. You know, he's like pretty
that's
young guy. I think he's only like 19. But yeah, that's a whole like go on YouTube. Kane Pixels. He's really good. He does some really good stuff for sure. I think I don't know. I mean, the backrooms was already technically a thing, but I feel like you
that's
really
amazing.
the opportunity,
Glumlot,
man.
Dev, where can people find you?
All right,
Is it
buddy.
Glumlot everywhere?
Yeah, Instagram at Glumlot, YouTube at Glumlot, TikTok at Glumlot underscore because at Glumlot was taken on
All right.
TikTok. So dang
Awesome.
it.
All right, Dev. Take care. All right.
All right,
Cheers.
buddy.
All right.